Well, I've been teaching now for 5 years, and I've really found it to be a challenge when you deal with textbooks with regards to material and information that keeps up with the times. Every year there's something new that we're doing. Every year there's something new that comes into our field. And I thought the best way to be able to get that point across would be to have our students, in lieu of ordering a textbook, get a CoSIDA membership, because there are so many great things that CoSIDA puts out that I think students can learn from in the now. A lot of career changing information coming from different public relations professionals, and not only inside CoSIDA but outside CoSIDA, that I think it just, to me, as I started this year focusing only on college media relations, that I thought joining CoSIDA and taking articles from there, I check it every day, and I'll bring some of those into class and apply them to what we're working on and what we're learning in the classroom. But I did find a lot of books that were not quite up to date, and I would have to tell the class, hey, don't listen to that, don't read that, that doesn't apply to now. Again, I want them to understand the networking opportunities that exist. Being able to volunteer here, being as close to Indianapolis as we are, being able to volunteer for special events like the Big Ten football championship or Big Ten men's and women's basketball tournament, or I think there's a regional this year for the women in Fort Wayne. All of those things, to me, are where our students should be flocking to get experience, like I did in the mid-'80s when I would work like the NAIA basketball championships in Kansas City. I got a great deal of experience. Or when I lived in Cincinnati, I had an opportunity to work the NCAA tournament there in '92. I had an opportunity to work the conference that Xavier was in at the time. I think it was the MCC. I got to work that tournament. So those were things that were really important in my development, and I wanted to pass that along. What I tell people in my class is that it's what you do for little or no money while you're a student that's going to help you make money in something that you love. Every one of us has worked and had jobs that we just showed up for, did our work, and we punched the clock. Everybody probably has had at one time or another part-time or summer jobs that really aren't fitting into their field because they've got to make money to help pay for school. And I tell them and I explain to them that the more experience they get now in college, the better off they are going to be. And I especially try to tell them to really focus on staying away from the main sports of football and basketball, because I really think when you can work on a smaller stage and work with less pressure, you get more hands-on experience that's really the same that you're going to take to wherever you move up to, whatever sport it may be. But that's what I try to mentor our students to do and get them to understand that, hey, establish yourself. Learn how to establish a relationship with the coach. Learn how to establish a relationship with student athletes, because all of those things are just going to help you later on down the road when you maybe get an opportunity to work with something that has a high visibility rate or is a premier sport at that institution, whatever level or division it may be. Getting the opportunity to build relationships and learn how to establish those relationships, to me, is very critical as we're taking young professionals and guiding them toward this career path. I think one of the most important things is to meet people in person. And that's where we had a lot of kids volunteer at the Big Ten Media Day in Chicago. I think that's really important. But as far as getting to know people, I think I've always found people in the profession to be really receptive to helping out. If someone writes you a note or a letter, I find that the people in media relations and communications are really good at responding and getting back to just saying, hey, here's something you may think of, here's a path. Here's someone you may want to talk to. And to me, more than anything else, the challenges that we have with the younger generation, and I've raised two boys that are age 26 and 23 right now, is getting them to take the initiative to communicate and get the initiative of stepping up and, trying to separate themselves from the pack, so to speak. And I've tried to teach them interpersonal communication is the best form. Don't text. If you've got to call instead of text. Meet in person instead of sending an email at work. Because so many people can misread an email based on the tone that they have in their mind. And that's what we really try to do. I think that's the most important thing for today's young professional, is learning and getting away from the reliance on social media and electronics, and be an in your face kind of person. I mean that in a great sense, meaning have FaceTime.
Right, yeah. I know
Okay, have FaceTime. Every day I walk around the offices of men's basketball and I peek my head in the door of every staff member who's in the men's basketball staff, just to happen to see, is there anything you need today? Is there something that I wasn't preparing for that you need to help me with? And today I had a question from someone on our staff, a lower level staff member, who was working with someone from another sport that wanted to see what we do for our NLI signing releases. So that was something I could do. I could send to a sport here on campus, someone who didn't know me but went through a go-between, and then I developed a relationship. I immediately called that person and said, hey, I just want to let you know, here's what I'm sending you. If you have questions, call me. I said, you have to understand that basketball is very different. Right. Basketball signings happen before a kid's season usually even starts. So you have a whole senior year of action and a whole senior year of rankings and awards and things. So it's very different. Whereas if your kids are signing after their senior year is complete, let's say volleyball, for instance, or football, then it's a little more complete in terms of the information that you would gather and get forward, and how we go about gathering and collecting that information. I think any experience you can get is important. Now, I started off at the junior college level back in 1986, but what I was able to do is actually work with Doug Vance, and I began to come to games, I believe it was 1987 and 88, that I worked games in football for Kansas. And it gave me an exposure to something that I couldn't get at the level I was at. So I don't care what level of experience you get, the big time is wherever you're at. And you have to treat it that way. You cannot sit there and think that everything has to be Power 5, Power 5, Power 5.
It's the experience of what you make it.
It's how you adapt and learn. I learned the difference between teams in the Big 8 at the time that had open locker rooms. I watched sports information staffs to see how they manage their post-game interviews, because a lot of what people don't understand is there are different components. Why do you have an open locker room? Or why do you not have an open locker room? Who do you make available as opposed to making everybody available? And those were great things that I got to learn through working with Doug at Kansas. During the game, I was on part of the stat crew where there was something that I had to keep, and that was helpful. Then computers took over, so nobody did stats by hand anymore. But for me, the experience of being around the post games and watching different people and how they did it was completely one of the best experiences that I ever had. In 1989 through 2000, I was at NKU for 4.5 years, and then I was at Emporia State for 7 years. And so the first 14 years or so of my 34-year career were spent at the small college level, where I think back then small colleges got treated much more favorably in the news media in terms of they made time to put our scores in. They called us. If they didn't have a score for a certain game, they called us and wanted that information. Now, I don't open up a newspaper and see a small college columnist like I did back when I could read Bill Richardson in the Kansas City Star, or Bill McKay in the Wichita Eagle, or Ken Corbett with the Topeka Capital Journal, the areas that I was influenced by in my career very early on. And it's very disappointing because we also didn't have websites. So I know now at the small college level, or the non-Power 5, you've got to really rely on your website and have a good team available to you to be able to get out the right information on your websites, because that's where people have to go to get that information. Absolutely, absolutely. I think, what can you provide? What can you provide in that? Can you provide video clips? Can you provide photography? You certainly, with all the stat programs, can put together all the box scores and stats that the media get, along with the written story to kind of tell, hey, this is what happened, and this was a neat thing. But the challenges that everyone has right now is because the amount of time that both television stations and newspapers spend on promoting things that are not professional or high major college has certainly diminished, and it's made a big challenge for everybody at that level. Well, I think the thing I'm most proud of is the relationships that I've built with young men and women who I had the chance to mentor or work with over the course of time at every institution I worked at. I'm still very close with a lot of people, and certainly when I started to get to Bowling Green and now Indiana, the numbers grow because you work with so many different people. But I think watching people that I got to mentor as students and see them be successful in their own right in their profession, I get a great deal of satisfaction out of that, because I hope at some point they took something from me that they liked and apply it to how they manage a media relations situation. But they're all evolving and they're all doing, I'm excited about how people are doing. And I think, to me, that if you can have an impact on other people, what I call is, are you a difference maker in somebody's life? If you can be a difference maker in one or two people's life, including your own children or whatever, but especially other people that aren't related to you, I take great pride in that, and I take great satisfaction when I watch and see different people, and there's so many I could mention, so I don't want to single anybody out.
That's my next question.
But I mean, it's a great it's a great deal of satisfaction that I get when I see people grow up professionally. To me, it's anybody in our men's basketball program, number one, because I can go away for 2 days. I went away for 2 days. I went on a football trip to Nebraska because my son works at Nebraska for their football program in creative services, and I had not seen him for a few months. So it was a chance to get up there on Friday. We could have dinner, we could go shopping, we could just spend father-son time in addition to what we were doing professionally. And when you're gone, even for a day or two, the whole landscape can change. Certain players may get injured. We're playing an exhibition game tomorrow night as we speak, and I find out, hey, this guy's tweaked a little bit, he's not going to go. This guy's doing this guy's great. So you really do, if you miss a day, you miss a lot. And that's something that's really hard. And so obviously talking with the men's basketball staff, and then working with the people in athletic communications. Jeff Kaag, who handles our IU football, calls me during the season and bounces things off me, and I say, yeah, this is what I would do. And even on the trip, there were things like, how would you handle this? What would you do? And I said, I'd put this out on Twitter as opposed to making an announcement or doing whatever. Just, that's very satisfying. So between the basketball staff and the athletic communication staff, those are the two things every day that I really try and keep my hand on in terms of being available and being accessible, because everything changes from day to day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything changes from day to day. So that's what we try to do. Okay, have you ever lifted weights before?
I have.
Okay, if you lift weights, do you get stronger?
Oh, yeah.
All right, but it's not a fun thing to do, is it,
No,
sometimes?
it's not.
All right, it's the same way in your personal and professional life. To me, doing things that are uncomfortable maybe strengthen you.
We share the same philosophy.
And that's where I think getting out of that comfort zone and doing things on a daily basis. Now, a lot of people tell me I need to get in the weight room and get in better shape, and I do. But more than anything else, what I try to do is do things that take me out of my comfort zone to make me stronger. I don't run away from situations. I don't like every situation I have to deal with at times, but you've got to hit it head on. And you've got to hit it in a timely manner. You can't think that things are just going to be brushed off and go away.
Yeah. We share the same exact
Okay?
philosophy.
And so to me, when you have people that become desk bound or they never get up from their computer because they're always working on game notes and they're always working on different things, I would say that you've got to get up and create a banter, create a rapport, because it's only going to make you stronger. And it's going to make you stronger in their eyes as well. I think one of the things that I can say with great confidence is that the relationships that I have with coaches, head assistant, young, old, the relationships that I have and have built have stood the test of time. And I can call upon a lot of different people, and we can talk about different things. Or, hey, how are you doing this here? What's this like? Or they may call me and say, hey, we'd like to do something similar to what you did. How did this come about? And that's what this is about. It's all relationship based. Public relations in its truest form is about relationships. And that's what we have to build as a professional in order for us, I think, to be successful for a long time. Well, what I try to do more than anything else is look at the lighter side of life, especially when it's appropriate. I really like to get on young people and let them know, like, hey, it may be something, an off-the-cuff remark like, okay, now that they're only going to bring 2 buses up and we're on the 3rd bus, and then they'll take the first 2 buses home and come back and get us and make them think that they're going to have to wait 5 hours for a bus. That's because I say it in a serious tone. I like to have fun with that. I believe that having humor and not be degrading. I never try to degrade anybody at all, but I like to have a lot of humor. I was making the joke Saturday night about, last year we got beat at Iowa in overtime in a game we could have won, and it's about, we're playing at 9:30 Eastern, and we get on the plane, and whenever you go to Iowa in the winter, you got to get the ice, so you're sitting 30 more minutes on the tarmac. You take off, and then before you know it, everybody on the plane is sleeping, and when you wake up, you see lights, you think you're landing, and you realize you're not landing in Bloomington, you're landing in Indianapolis, which is going to create another hour, 2 hours, because a bus has to come up and get you and then bring you home. So I was joking about that on the flight, and it turned out that we tried to land in Bloomington, but the wind was too strong, and it was blowing us like crazy, and the pilot came within 10 feet of landing it, or at least landing half the plane, because we were on our side. And he immediately pulled up, and we went to Indy. And so all the guys that I was sharing that story with in the back of the plane were just livid at me because I told that story. I said, hey, we're going to, here we are going to Indy again. And so that's what I try to do. But I just try to make people feel comfortable enough and get them relaxed, get them off, get the edge off. And that's what I try to do. I don't think I ever, I can get in, you can get intense and get in the moment, and you need people to do their job. But for the most part, when I try to have fun every day in what I do. And as you can tell by my office, I have a surfboard over here. I have a picture of the one championship team I played on in college, and the fun game is, can you pick me out? and that's what I try to do with people, and I give them a prize if they can pick me out. So. The only thing I do outside of work is I used to coach. I was a baseball player in college, and I coached my kids and other kids from the time they were 9 years old until probably their junior year in college. I was involved in some way or the other. I am a baseball player who happens to be in media relations. Everything that I do in my profession is based on me being a baseball player. Mm-hmm. I think more than anything else, those of us in athletic communications, we're the leadoff hitters for the athletic department. And here's why. You cannot raise money. You cannot sell sponsorships. You cannot do anything unless there's awareness about your program. It's our job as athletic communications professionals to create free awareness out there about our programs. We don't always control what's written or said about our programs, but it's our jobs to manage it and try to find ways to be successful in getting information out. When you work for Indiana basketball, there's enough interest that you don't have to worry about that. But back when I was at Emporia State, we had the all-time leading rusher in college football. How do I get that out? How do I make it seem like Brian Shea was the greatest running back to ever play college football at the time, in the same year that Ricky Williams was doing this for Texas in 1998? That's the challenge. But I feel if you made a lineup out of your athletic department personnel and their responsibilities, we are the leadoff hitters. Back when I was a senior in college, I finished second in the nation in runs scored. How do you win? You win by scoring runs. To me, we win by creating awareness so your marketing folks can go out and sell sponsorships, so your coaches can go out and talk to recruits and they've heard about your program. They've seen some of the things that have been out there. Donors, they know about your program. And so that's where everything I do is as a baseball player first, who just happens to work in athletic communications. That's the mindset I take.